Okay, that was an interesting choice, Leah. I wish we had time for comments, but I just want to make sure we get through everybody. Okay, so let's give Neully all of your attention and applause.
I'm sorry if I slur a little bit, my tongue is swollen, so bear with me. It's essentially impossible to define Maya Angelou as one title. She is a poet, a writer, an actress, and a playwright, and even more. Her accomplishments are inspiring to many, and have specifically influenced the African American community due to her experiences growing up in times of racial discrimination. And yet, despite the harsh times she may have had to endure, Maya Angelou has helped to prove that with hard work and a determined spirit, good work can always be done. Her life was most definitely not free from trials. As a child, she suffered a devastating episode of traumas. She was raped by her mother's boyfriend around the age of 7. For years afterwards, she lived life as a basic mute, internalizing her suffering, and yet she pulled through after this trauma, and many of us can barely begin to imagine it. She found her voice again, which makes you wonder why so many of us often can't find our own voices. Maya was a risk taker. Some may call her actions reckless, but what truly matters is that she seemed always to have some sense of direction in the choices that she was making. She dropped out of high school at 14 to become San Francisco's first African-American cable car conductor. When eventually she did go back to finish high school, she was a single mother to a son upon graduating. Raising a child all alone is a struggle for anyone, let alone a young African-American female who grew up hearing derogatory statements left and right simply because of the color of her skin. A single African-American teenage mother, it's a stereotype that we hear often today. Perhaps Maya Angelou filled the requirements, but she was not going to be defined by anything she could not change. Maya worked to care for her son, first through working basic jobs, such as waitressing or being hired as an assistant cook, but her passion for the arts eventually made its way through, and it was no longer enough to just work odd jobs for a sum of money. The compelling desire to take center stage, both metaphorically and literally, building up a confidence inside of her that encouraged her to take initiative and to start seeking ways to introduce herself to the business of the arts. Her career took off with a beginning in off-Broadway shows that took her across the country. She even organized her own shows, a benefit for the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. She was the conference's northern coordinator, proving that through struggle, one can find faith that keeps them going. A discoverer of the world, she traveled abroad throughout the 60s, at one point teaching at the University of Ghana for a little time. Her past was literally thousands of miles away from her, and it's a difficult task to let events in the past stay in the past. But Maya was done with them. She was on to bigger and better things, fulfilling accomplishments that many people only dream of. Angelou has become known as an international literary star, breaking into the writing world with her own personal memoir, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. She wrote of her early childhood and young adulthood experiences. It is hard enough for most people to recall the trauma on their own, and yet here, Maya was publishing it for the world to see. Perhaps the most healing remedy is not running from who you are, but embracing your true self. She must have known this, for through all of her pain, it seemed she became her best self. She just wouldn't stop. She went on to write a screenplay, to act in a feature film role that granted her with a Tony Award nomination. She even found time, in all of this, to work on a miniseries for television. What are our limits, people? What were hers? Reflecting over one woman's accomplishments and nothing the way they seem to go on and on is haunting, in a way. Why, we may wonder, have we allowed our own struggles to limit the great potential that we have? Add poetry to the list of her accomplishments, add staying to the New York Times bestseller list for her memoir for a 2-year streak, the longest record in the history of the chart, add a Grammy for an audio version of one of her most famous poems, On the Pulse of Morning, written for the inauguration of Bill Clinton. Add directing a movie, and through all of this, because the woman loves to cook, add a cookbook to the list of her publications. But most importantly, Maya has accomplished the desires of her heart. She has looked inside of herself, asked herself what she wanted, and then took her desires and looked for ways to fulfill them in any which way that she could. Today, she is 85 years old, and her life has been lived. Can all of us say that? She can look back and say that her years have been full of life. She can look back and say that despite the struggles that made her feel at times like she was already done, she is still here. A lot of us have not gone through trials as large and scarring as she has, and even if we have, we can see in Maya's experiences that the pain we feel is survivable and can bring about good. So stop dwelling on what you cannot change, begin to live for now, and if you must confront the past, use it to your advantage. You've come this far, look to find your heart's desires, and do everything you can to fulfill them, because Maya Angelou has. Happy birthday, Maya Angelou.
Thanks, Neully. Is it really her birthday today?
No, I don't think so.